The Great Gardens of Cornwall are often described as horticultural heaven. Every year, many thousands of visitors make their way to the most southwesterly part of Britain to enjoy the many beautiful gardens open to the public. The Great Gardens of Cornwall are blessed with an early spring and a very mild climate, so it's possible to grow a much wider range of plants here than anywhere else in the country. Many of the gardens have fascinating histories and owe much of their heritage to the great Victorian and Edwardian plant hunters who brought back seeds and plants from around the globe. Others are relatively new, created out of overgrown wasteland and transformed into stunning masterpieces. Whichever of the great gardens you choose to visit, it's guaranteed you'll have a warm welcome and an unforgettable experience. Some 30 miles off Land's End lies the island of Tresco, world famous because of its unforgettable Abbey garden. Despite bearing the brunt of the worst Atlantic storms, the Abbey garden grows rare and tender plants from all over the world. Visitors come to Tresco all year round to admire the work of 5 generations of family and of the gardeners dedicated to this amazing place.
This garden is special because there's nothing like it in Britain. All our plants come from Mediterranean climate zones. The garden started in 1834. A man called Augustus Smith came here and he built a garden around the site of this old ruined priory. So it had a nice romantic feel with the old ruins, but also with the unique collection of plants, so it made it something rather special.
It all began as love at first sight, thanks to an estate agent's photograph. When Sue and Richard Nathan duly bought Benython Estate Gardens on the Lizard in 1999, they were a mostly overgrown wilderness. Even the lakes had all but disappeared after years of neglect. But the Nathans were unfazed by their purchase. They set about planting 15,000 trees to provide all-important shelter from the prevailing salty winds, and then set to work clearing, restoring and planting. Colour is the priority here, rather than rarity or speciality. Hot South African colours complement gentler hues, providing interest from spring right through to autumn. Visitors find it hard to believe that this is a relatively new garden, a testament to the hard work, vision and dedication of its owners. Caerhays Castle and Gardens owe their splendour to their unique microclimate and sheltered coastal location. Sea mists bathe the 140-acre woodlands in moisture, providing the perfect conditions for Caerhays' world-famous collection of magnolias and rhododendrons.
Right, welcome to Caerhays Castle Gardens on this glorious day.
Caerhays is a very important historic garden because of its connections with the plant hunters in China who brought a huge wealth of plant material back to the UK. Caerhays is also particularly well known as one of the holders of the National Collection of Magnolias, and in all there are probably 500 to 600 different varieties and cultivars and species growing away in the garden at Caerhays, many of which have been there for over 100 years. At the turn of the last century, the big drive was to introduce new plant species. And there were two great plant hunters who were involved with the Williams family. They were George Forrest and Ernest Wilson. Forrest probably had the closer of the two relationships with J.C. Williams, my grandfather. And Forrest went on no less than 9 expeditions to China between 1905 and 1932, where he actually died on his last expedition.
With more than 19 million visitors, the Eden Project is a world-class garden and visitor attraction for all ages. It was the brainchild of Sir Tim Smit, whose vision was to transform a disused China clay pit into a global garden, demonstrating what people can achieve when they put their minds to something. Opening in 2001, Eden's living theatre of plants and people has been captivating visitors ever since. 2 massive biomes, which serve as a backdrop to extensive outdoor gardens, house the largest rainforest in captivity and recreate the fragrant landscapes of the Mediterranean. At Eden, you'll find Europe's largest collection of useful plants, from food crops to fuels and medicines to materials. It's a place where visitors come to experience the sheer beauty of these striking contemporary gardens, along with good food, music, art, exhibitions and year-round events. Eden is an educational charity dedicated to connecting people with each other and the living world, and runs education programs and transformational projects nationally and globally. With its extraordinary microclimate, Lamorran House Gardens share similar climatic conditions with Miami, Southern California, and stretches of the Mediterranean coastline. Lamorran is set on a south-facing 4-acre site within the town of St Mawes, enjoying stunning views of Falmouth Bay. It boasts one of the most extraordinary contemporary collections of plants in Cornwall. Lamorran is also thought to be the most northerly palm garden in the world, home to some 40 varieties of palm, as well as an extensive collection of tree ferns, Dicksonias and Cyathias, all thriving in this piece of paradise. Lamorran is a testament to the hard work and expertise of its owners, creating these amazing gardens out of uncultivated land, smothered in blackthorn and brambles. It first opened to the public in 1990 at the request of local people, and proved so successful that it's now open for 6 months of the year. The Lost Gardens of Heligan have been dubbed the garden restoration story of the century. This sleeping beauty was reawakened from the brambles of time in 1990 and has been gently restored to its former glory. Heligan is now one of the most loved and romantic gardens in the UK. Its 200 acres of magic and mystery once again cast a spell on all who visit. Among its delights are a luxuriant subtropical jungle, winding paths originally laid out 2 centuries ago, the pleasure grounds, and the Victorian productive gardens, offering visitors a chance to appreciate the labour-intensive methods of cultivation using Victorian techniques. More than 300 varieties of mostly heritage fruit, vegetables, salads and herbs are produced to supply the Heligan kitchen. Whatever time of year you visit, this is a garden for all seasons. The National Trust offers 7 beautiful Great Gardens for visitors to Cornwall. Antony, overlooking the River Liner and landscaped by the legendary Humphrey Repton, features grand yew hedges, an intimate, beautiful summer garden, and a fine collection of rhododendrons, camellias and magnolias. Visitors to Coteil can enjoy a garden for all seasons, from early spring flowers to glorious summer herbaceous borders and orchards crammed with fruit in the autumn. Glendurgan is a true Cornish valley garden with an iconic laurel maze, first planted in the early 1800s. It's been described as a small piece of heaven on earth. Godolphin, an ancient beautiful garden with medieval roots, features traditional seasonal planting in 3 of the original 9 Tudor compartments. Lanhydrock is a beautiful example of high Victorian style, with herbaceous borders, colourful higher gardens and a fabulous formal parterre set in acres of stunning parkland. Trelissick, with its magnificent sea views, boasts a sensory garden, exotic and herbaceous borders, and unforgettable woodland walks through dappled sunlight. Trengwainton bursts with exotic trees and shrubs in this warm and luxuriant garden. The 5 sections of walled gardens are crammed with tender exotic species from around the world. Set in a wooded valley and first planted nearly 200 years ago, Trewidden Gardens is a subtropical paradise with a stunning coastal backdrop. It boasts over 5,000 different plants from all over the world, providing an ever-changing display of colour all year round.
And the great thing about Trewidden for me is that it's got many different facets, especially in the summer months. You find your way down through the garden, a beautiful collection of plants, giving you great summer interest, and then find your way down onto the beach. What a wonderful way to sort of end your journey down through the garden. You've got the beautiful sandy beaches, the lovely, fresh, clear water of the Helford Estuary, and if you feel like it, you can have an ice cream or a tea and a coffee on the beach. Who could fail to be amazed by this great display of colour from the hydrangeas? We have around about 2.5 hectares of hydrangeas at Trewidden. There's this great cascade of blue leading all the way down to the sea and beyond. Fantastic.
My name is Neil Bennett and I'm the head gardener at Tremonheere. It's a private estate. It's very much a working estate. The Boscawen family have been here for many hundreds of years. 1334 they could be dated back to be exact. 60 acres, it's the largest private garden in Cornwall, one of the largest in England. So 60 acres is absolutely mammoth. It's quite a tall order for me and my small team to keep on top of. But it's also the plant collection is unrivaled here. We now have got the National Collection of Camellia reticulatas as well as of this year, which is very exciting for us. So it's not just the views, the vistas, it's the whole plant collection. You've got the big 3, you've got the rhododendrons, the camellias, the magnolias, the very big 3 famous in Cornwall. We've got the champion trees, but it's not just that, it's the textures, it's the feel of them, the scent of them, the scent of the flowers, whether it's Coreopsis or Sarcococca. You've got the blooms of the Magnolia campbellis that come out in mid-February, beautiful pink teacup type flowers. The world is your oyster walking around this garden. You can touch, you can smell, you can look at. Yeah, it's wonderful. You can hear the rustling of the bamboo canes as well. So it's a whole sensory, well, it's wonderful on all senses.
Tucked into St Austell Bay, Trewidden enjoys an enviable location for a woodland garden. Its deep soils, rainfall levels, and the influence of the Gulf Stream have all helped to create a stunning rainforest. Home to the Caerhays family since the 16th century, each generation has contributed to its magnificent arboretum, and, more recently, an award-winning camellia collection. Thanks to diligent collecting, planting and cultivation, it boasts more than 150 champion trees on the National Tree Register, which records the tallest and widest trees in the country. In addition, Trewidden houses many seedlings from plants under threat in their natural habitat, especially from Chile and Taiwan, as well as trialling southern hemisphere plants. Highlights of a visit to Trewidden include the beautiful walled garden, the huge glasshouses, and the formal yew walks. Gazing out over Mounts Bay and St Michael's Mount, Tremonheere Sculpture Gardens evolved out of a chance meeting between the new owner of the site and an artist with a fascination for the 1999 eclipse. It resulted in an exciting marriage between contemporary art and garden design. Unlike Cornwall's other great gardens, Tremonheere has no history nor manor house at its centre, but owner Neil Armstrong could see beyond the jungle of neglect. He set about clearing and creating this gem of a garden. Tremonheere quickly became a magnet for internationally renowned artists to create works especially for this fabulous garden setting. Plants have been chosen for their sculptural forms, textures and colours, particularly palm trees and succulents. There are more than 40 varieties of palms, along with spectacular collections of grass trees, bamboos and tree ferns. Space, nature and art have combined to provide fascination for everyone who visits. The fascinating story of Trewidden Garden goes back to 1850. Work began on what had been the site of one of Cornwall's oldest open-cast mines, which could date back to Roman times. Visitors today would probably never guess as they stroll under the beautiful canopies in the tree fern dell, one of the finest in the Northern Hemisphere. The estate has been owned by the Bolitho family for nearly 200 years, with each generation carrying on the tradition of respecting the garden's historic legacy. Trewidden's exquisite 15 acres looking down over Mounts Bay include a magnificent collection of more than 300 camellias and magnolias. Like many Cornish gardens which follow a river or stream, visitors will discover that this is a square-ish garden with a maze of plants meandering through it. And despite being a long-established garden, Trewidden only opened to the public for the first time in 2002. Work continues to reclaim more of the original garden and adding to its national collection of azaleas. Trewithen is one of Cornwall's oldest estates and boasts one of the loveliest gardens in the country. It's the place to go to enjoy its magnificent collection of camellias, rhododendrons and magnolias, along with wonderful woodland walks and guided tours of the house. It benefited from the great Victorian and Edwardian plant hunting expeditions, ensuring a botanical reputation that endures to this day. The work continues, with head gardener Gary Long adding to the substantial plant collection with trips to China, bringing back new plant material for the garden. Trewithen means House of the Trees, and with 30 acres of stunning woodland gardens and more than 200 acres of parkland, the name couldn't be more appropriate. Future plans include restoring the 18th century water gardens. Trewithen never fails to captivate its visitors with its beauty and tranquility.